is my experience in the career-wise data analyst assessment. Hello, I just want to talk about in this video my experience in the assessment for the career-wise application for the data analyst role. It happened I applied, as I opened my LinkedIn profile last week, and I saw the very first post I saw was, was from the LinkedIn page of career-wise, and I immediately submitted my application. It was pretty much straightforward. And later in the week, about on Friday or so, I was glad to wake up to an email from them telling me about the next stage of the application process, which was the assessment. And from the email, I realized that there were over 2,000 applications, and having to receive that email telling me about the next step of the application was already a thing of excitement to me. And so in no time, I got into the assessment. I'm going to talk about my experience. My name is Raphael, and I am a data professional with specialty in analysis, data visualization, and data engineering associates. This is my experience. This particular assessment by CareerWise has really been an interesting experience for me, and it is because it is one of the many times I've had to work with large real-world data sets. One of the tables actually had over 160,000 records of transactions in them. And so the assessment came with a dump file. And because I've worked with dump files before, so I was able to know that this is actually a dump file. And so the dump file contained, 4 tables, having the table structures with some of them with more than 10 columns. So imagine like having over 10 different columns that you would have to work with. So you just need to go through everything, figure out which column to use for your queries. And the dump file also contained insert statements, inserting data into the different tables in the file. So it was pretty much an exciting experience. It had no structure. The data set had no structure whatsoever. So you just need to figure it out, know what should be used, what you need, and what you don't need in the dump file. So this was a really interesting experience for me because it tested my data abilities to be able to handle and work with different types of data set and be able to make meaning out of them for a business like CareerWise. And so if you're a data professional and you want a finance data set, I believe since this is for assessment, I can share it with you. Just let me know. I'll share it with you. You can use it for your data projects. The assessment questions we were given were really business relevant, I would say. We were given 4 different questions, to concentrate on and develop SQL queries to answer those questions. So number 1 of them was to find high value customers. So in the assessment, we're told to concentrate on 2 accounts, savings account and investment account. So every high value customers were those who, have funded both their a savings account as well as their investment account. And I think it's very important for businesses to know this, to know their high value customers. And what I did in this particular question was to, among other things I did in my SQL query was to identify the column that, indicate a savings account and also the ones that indicate an investment account. And apart from that, I used the column for amount, to filter by all the ones that have at least a kobo in them, have, funded the account with at least a kobo. Those were considered to be high value customers. So that is what I did for this particular question. The number 2 business question was about segmenting customers by transactions. And this was really very, I think a little challenging, I would say, because first of all, you need to identify the customers' transactions because there are different tables that you need to connect to join. So what I did in this particular query was, among other things that I did, was to use the case when statement. First of all, I introduced CTEs, as common table expressions, to calculate or find, first of all, the average transactions, and then later on, I use the case when clause to, categorize them. Less than or equal to 2 average monthly transactions were considered to be occasional users, and then between 3 and 9 average transaction monthly were considered to be, in between, medium frequency users, and then those that had at least 10 transactions per month were considered to be frequent users of CareerWise. Now the next question, which is number 3, was to find inactive customers. This is very, very important for every business to know those customers who had not used their services for over a period of time. And in this question, we are going to find out the customers who have not used their accounts for the last 1 year, at least for 1 year. So what I did here was to use the MySQL window function to calculate the difference since their last transaction happened. So that is what I did for this particular query. And the last one was to get the value of each customers by account age and the transactions, basically to know, just like the first question, to find high value customers. This is to find the value of each customer based on the account age, that is how long they've stayed with the fintech company, as well as the number of transactions. In all these questions, first of all, they are very, very business relevant. And these business questions also tested my SQL abilities, because I had to connect, the business question, the relevance of the business to the data set, and trying to do that with queries. It was really an exciting experience for me, I would say. Now, these are the things I liked about the assessment. So number one is because it had questions that were actual business questions. So I liked that about the assessment because it made sense to answer those questions, to be able to know which customers are high value customers, to know the category or segmentation of your customers, and those kind of things. I really liked that about the assessment. And another thing that I liked about the assessment was that it had actual data set. The data set that it came with, it made sense that if you're working in analyzing data, you should be able to work with different data sets. And I appreciate the fact that they provided that data set, because, as analysts or as data professionals, you got to work with different kinds of data sets. And like I said earlier, I was really unstructured, had no structure whatsoever. And in fact, in the insert statements, there were, different insert statements hidden inside of, other insert statements. And because the whole data set was like, everything was open, so I had to toggle it to be able to discover that there are some insert statements inside of others. I had problems with that when I intended to, insert those data sets in my table in the database I was going to use for the queries. So really, really good test of, analytical capabilities for data professionals. Now, despite how very interesting and exciting this experience was for me, there were some things that I feel could be improved in the assessments. Number one is a remote database access. So I felt that in the assessment they would have given us a test environment database with the data that we used. So that would have helped data analysts to be able to remotely connect to the database, that when the person eventually gets to work on the job, you can go to those database and get data that you need. However, on a second thought, I felt that it makes sense that they shared that with us, because not every data analyst may know how to work on database. Like for me, I know how to I can do some database administrative work. I know how to create grant access views and all those kind of things I can do. So it makes sense that they shared the data set with us. And another thing that would have been included, that would have made the assessment worthwhile, would have been to include testing visualization. Maybe there is another stage where that would be tested, but since it's not in this particular one, I felt that would have been included. So for the BI tools that were mentioned in the job application, so they would have tested on that to see if this patient, okay, quite all right, you can handle dump files. You can extract, using SQL queries, you can extract and answer business question, and can you present that in a visual for non-technical stakeholders communication. So that I thought would have been part of the assessment. The very last thing I felt would have improved the assessment was testing on other data operations like pre-processing, because I felt this assessment was very narrowed down to answering business questions. So just go straight to answering those questions. So I felt it was not going to test, pre-processing, data cleaning, and those kind of stuff. I didn't do that because I figured it would. I mean, there are thousands of records, first of all. And apart from that, there are, each column had nothing less than 7 different columns. Like some of them have almost 20. So it would have taken time to go through each of those individual records, know what is missing in them, to do data enrichment if needed to, and to also know the things that are missing, basically general data cleaning exercise, which generally takes. So this is my experience in the application process. I'm hoping for the best. I said earlier, if you're a data professional or data analyst, you'd want to work on a real-world data set, I'm willing to share this with you. Just let me know. I'm willing to share that with you. Other than that, this has been an exciting experience for me, and I'm hoping for the best.